In this unit, we're going to be learning about functions and how they're used. So think of functions as subprograms, and they're useful for a whole bunch of things. So let's just get into an example that uses them in its programming so that you can see what I'm talking about. So in the main program, we're going to create a program that will do a few things. So it will give some instructions. So we'll first explain to the user what our program is doing. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to prompt for a time conversion. So we are going to do one of two options. So option one will be perform a days to hours conversion. And then the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to perform an hours to days conversion. And then we will, in both of those situations, then display the result. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking this down into these steps using some functions, and we're going to use the most basic level of them. So for our program, we're going to need a choice that the user is going to enter. So this is going to be whether they'll want to do number one, perform days to hours or hours to days. And then we will figure out which one they want to do. So let's put in cout time converter. Let's make this sound futuristic, 2000. And then we'll do an endl. And then what we're going to do is we will cout make a selection and endl, and then we will display our options. So one is going to be days to hours. And then we're going to cout 2 hours to days. There we go. So this is the basic level of this. Now, this is going to serve as kind of the instructions, like what is happening in the program. So what we're going to do is we are going to create our first function that is going to accomplish this. So instead of putting these 4 lines of code in the main program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them instead into this line of code. Instructions. So when the instructions line of code runs, it's going to do all 4 of these things. So how do we do that? So this is a line of code that we'll get an error on if I run this program. I'll show you what happens. Error, instructions was not declared in this scope. So you've seen this with variables before. So what I have to do is I have to create something that says what this line of code accomplishes. So we're going to be programming in an area that we really haven't been doing at all. So at the top, above int main, so we should probably drop this down a few lines so that you've got some space. We are going to create our instructions function. And then this is how it's going to work. We start with the word void. Now, we'll get into what void means, but sometimes the function calls kind of act like a variable type. This one will not act like any of them. So that's why we're putting void here. You don't have to remember that because it's a little bit out of context. We haven't learned how non-void ones work. So anyway, for now, just put void there, and we will put instructions as the name of it. Open close parentheses. And now for all of the lines of code that we're going to do for this function, we're going to open curly brace and end curly brace. And then everything that we do in here is going to be what happens when this instructions line of code is encountered. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a cut and paste here. So I'm going to cut, go up to instructions, paste. So now in my main program, all I have is my choice declaration. So, and then I have my instructions. When this line of code runs, it runs everything that is in the function. So if I run the program now, this is what we get. So the main program runs the instructions line, which activates the function, and then we get this as our solution. So we'll continue on from here. So we've got the instructions. We'll put a cout choice and cin the choice variable. Looking at this, you might think, okay, well, why don't we have this in a function? Because it's kind of maybe it's connected to this. Well, we're not there yet. Reading variables and then passing them from one function to another is going to take a little bit of extra learning. We're just doing the basic step right now. So now what I'm going to do is if choice is equal to 1, so we'll separate it like this. If the choice is equal to 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a function called days to hours. And then else if choice equals 2, then I'm going to run a function called hours to days. So now, one of the advantages to functions, as you can see, is it makes my code very easy to read. If choice is 1, well, I know exactly what this whole section of the code is going to do. And if choice is 2, I know what this whole section is going to do. I know this is the part with my instructions. So it really sort of breaks down things into the individual steps, makes it much easier to read here. So now let's create these two functions here. So up above, we'll create some more space. So this is, we're going to do void days to hours, open close parentheses, put in the curly braces. And now inside the functions, I am going to create variables that will only exist inside the function. So I'm going to put in days and hours here. Days and hours. Now when this end brace happens, variables destroyed. So any variable that I create inside this function is going to get destroyed when the function ends. So we'll prompt the user, so enter the amount of days. We'll see in days here. And then what we'll do is we'll do the conversion. So our amount of hours is going to be equal to the amount of days times 24. And we'll do a cout days days is hours, and then we'll put hours. period. There we go. So now what we have to do is we have to do the reverse. So I'll just do a quick copy paste, so that'll save the most time. And now this second one is going to be, instead of days to hours, this is going to be hours to days. So we're going to ask them to enter the amount of hours. Now we're now better put the right variables here. Now we're calculating the days is going to be equal to the hours. We're doing this in reverse. Hours divided by 24. And then we'll reverse the output. So hours is days. There we go. So we'll run this. So what happens is, first we get our instructions. I'm going to put my choice days to hours. I'm going to say I've got 10 days and I get 240 hours. Similarly, it will run for the second one. Enter the amount of hours. I've got 240, which is going to be 10 days. So anyway, right now, just the advantage of this really just looks like it's cleaning up our code and making it a little bit easier to read, which is just fine for now. But we're going to use functions for other more important things in future programs.